Hey there, beginning farmer friends. I am out with the pigs. There they go running. They are just absolutely squirrely today. It is 75 degrees on November 4th. Just, I don't know, within the last 2 weeks, it was 21 degrees. This is quite a bit of change for sure with the weather, and I feel like it just has the pigs all happy and excited. They're running around all over the place as I'm walking around out here. I will give you a quick update on the pig pasture, the woodlot, all of that stuff. The pigs are doing pretty good on the woodlot right now. There's actually only 19 left out here because I've got 80 pigs up in the hoop house training to electric fence. If the weather sticks like this, I know earlier I said I'm not going to move them out, but if the weather sticks like this, I might bring them out. They're right now enjoying all the bounty of the fall. I've seen them eating nuts. I don't have a ton of nuts on this part of the woodlot, but they have been eating what we do have available for them out here. They're doing really well. The pasture part of it that I wanted to renovate, it's a little iffy right now. I don't know if you can hear that. They were kind of chomping on nuts and acorns that they're digging out of the leaf here. So that's kind of cool. Let's go see if we can find some. I actually had to step outside the fence here to find something because they've got it combed over pretty well. Basically, this is what they're eating. Just little acorns that they're finding on the ground all over the place, chomping them up. The problem with the pasture isn't so much anything that the pigs are doing wrong or anything like that. I mean, it looks pretty good. This area right here is rooted up pretty well. You know, the weeds are down. There's a little bit of scrub brush stuff. The problem is with me, the farmer, in that I just haven't had time to set up a place to move the pigs out to, and more importantly, get the disc and bring it up here with a tractor since 4430s broke down. I'm not 100% sure where we stand on that project this year. We're gonna stand somewhere. I just don't know where that is. Today though, I want to do something a little different. I want to incorporate the podcast, which is the predecessor, I guess you should say, to the YouTube channel. I want to incorporate the podcast into today's YouTube video. I realize that a podcast is a totally different medium than the videos. Videos, you have to sit down at a computer or on your phone, or in my case, when you're on Wi-Fi, and you have to spend 8 to 10 to 12 minutes watching it. With a podcast, you can listen to it while you're on the go, or you're out doing chores, if you're in the car, all of those sort of things. And I realize there's a lot of people that like the podcast, and they've come over to the YouTube channel, but they've mentioned that they like the podcast. So I hope to kind of restart the podcast. I don't know if I'm going to do it every week like I was doing prior, maybe twice a month, maybe once a month, but I kind of hope to get it going again so that we not only have the videos, but we also have the podcast, two different ways for people to follow along on the journey and hopefully learn. I think that's kind of the whole point behind these videos, is to share what I've learned and hopefully be able to give some positive encouragement to those of you out there that are wanting to farm or are farming or are needing to pivot your farm, which kind of is what it feels like we're doing on our farm right now. That is all to say this. Here is the Beginning Farmer Show podcast.
Old mountain tune called Cuckoo Bird.
Hello and welcome to the Beginning Farmer Show. I'm your host, Ethan Book. This is episode number 157, Crooked Gap Farm version 2.0.
Well, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird, and she whistles as she flies. She never hollers cuckoo till the 4th of July.
I'll just put it out there right away. This episode is kind of a weird one. It is sort of an introduction and a relaunch all in one. The main topic that I want to talk about though today is, what is Crooked Gap Farm version 2.0? What do I mean by that? I'm going to take some time to share some thoughts on that. And of course, as always, a hard lesson learned for you.
Jack Diamonds, you know me from old. You mob my poor pockets of silver and gold.
Alright, well let me quickly tell you what is going on here. So I am sitting down right now recording the audio of this podcast, but I am also at the same time recording the video of this podcast that I'm going to release on YouTube. So if you are catching this through iTunes or whatever your podcasting app of choice is, know that this video also is landing on YouTube, and know that the Beginning Farmer also has a presence on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, hey, you can listen to the whole thing. I'm only going to put snippets, the highlights or the lowlights or whatever lights I can get out of this. I'm only going to put snippets of this full-length podcast episode on YouTube. So if you're following along and watching on the YouTube channel, don't forget to go over to your favorite podcasting device and just search The Beginning Farmer. Here's what's been going on in the farm. Let's do a quick farm update, and then we'll get into the meat of the episode, this idea of Crooked Gap Farm version 2.0. A lot has been going on in 2020 on the farm, just like a lot has been going on in the world in 2020. We just finished our typical, normal farmers market season. Of course, it wasn't a typical normal farmers market season, but in a lot of ways it was still typical and normal for us. I think every single Saturday that we did this year, and we did 25 Saturdays, every single Saturday was higher than the corresponding Saturday the previous year. So that was quite a big deal. Otherwise on the farm, it's just been pretty typical. You know, we're still grazing animals out on pasture. We're still raising pigs and cattle and sheep and chickens. We have been able to get a lot done lately. We've been doing a lot of just our typical normal farming, but we've also been doing a ton of cleanup projects on the farm. So that has been really, really good. I have begun feeding a little bit of hay to supplement the cattle and the sheep on pasture because midsummer, late summer, early fall, we had quite a bit of drought, and we're still kind of feeling the effects of that drought. Other big news from the farm, and this is probably the biggest news, if you follow along in any way outside of the podcast, you know that this has kind of been all-consuming for the past couple months, but we added concrete to our shed. We have a 3-sided shed that we built roughly 8 to 10 years ago on the farm, and it's always just had a dirt floor that eventually had become, dirt caves almost, huge ruts, and now we have concrete in the floor of it. What I really want to talk about today is Crooked Gap Farm version 2.0. This is kind of a phrase that I've coined that I haven't really told anyone about. I don't know if I've even explained it completely to my wife, although it's not a total surprise to her because we have talked about a lot of these things over the last weeks and months and honestly years, and now it's kind of all coalescing in my head to a place where I am ready to push out version 2.0. We began the farm roughly 12 years ago. It is approximately 40 acres. Prior to farming, I spent 2 to 3 years kind of planning farming and think about farming. And throughout the entire time that we have had a farm, I have had an off-farm job. The vast majority of that 12 years, I've been a pastor. I still have an off-farm job where I'm a lead pastor at a church. In the church world, you have established churches that have been around for quite some time. You have church plants where a group of people come in and they work together to begin a church where there wasn't a church before. And then sometimes you have a church that replants, where it is a dying church that isn't quite dead yet. Not everyone has left the building. They haven't had to sell everything yet, where the leadership of that church says, hey, we need to restart and we're going to change things. And I kind of see Crooked Gap Farm version 2.0 as almost a replant. Now, don't get me wrong. We are not dying. Crooked Gap Farm was not on the edge of dying, but I do think that maybe I have let it become stagnant in maybe my marketing, stagnant in maybe my innovation, stagnant in maybe, I don't know how I want to put it, the things that are going on the farm. I know that doesn't explain anything, but I think that's maybe the best way to put it. I want to see our farm move up a level, which I think is something that I've been trying to do for a while. It is not that we've been stagnant and I haven't thought okay, we need to take a next step. Okay, we need to take a next step. I feel okay, we've been taking baby steps. Now I think that I've seen there's some big things that we can do to take a big step. I feel like that's where we are right now, where we are positioned and set up to make that big jump. There are a few things behind this readiness and this reason. The first one is this, The Lean Farm. This is a book by Ben Hartman. I bought it because of John Suscovich. John, I haven't talked to you in forever. How are you doing if you happen to listen to this? I bought the book and I made it through it, or I probably should say I made it through most of it. I thought, wow, this is really good. And that's as far as I made it. I've picked the book back up and I've really been re-energized. The second thing, and I'll just be completely honest about it, is the pandemic. While the pandemic and everything associated with it has made life difficult for some businesses and some small farms, and especially farms that had a lot of wholesale marketing areas. If you go back to March and April and May, Like, our sales went crazy, and it kind of opened my eyes to, like, okay, this is possible, not just because of the pandemic, but it is possible for us to produce this much, to reach these customers, to have this market. We have continued to have increased sales. Third thing, the farmers market. I've talked about it a little bit already, but we pivoted big time way back in April in the planning and May in the implementation. It has allowed us to meet new customers and broaden our markets. The fourth thing, and this is a little deeper, I think I would just say that it is humility and hopefully a little maturity. I'm not old by any means. I don't feel old, but I am getting older. And as I have gone along this farming journey for 12 years, there is just a lot of humility and I hope a growing wisdom that comes along with all of it. Farming can be humbling. Let's just put it that way. You think you've got something figured out on the farm, whether it's marketing or livestock raising, and then something comes along and humbles you and shows you that you don't have it figured out. What I think is happening, I hope with a lot of humility and maybe with a little maturity, is I am doing a better job of admitting and looking at what I am not doing well. The fifth thing that I think is behind this idea is that I have a strong desire to farm still. And this has never wavered throughout this whole 12 years. There have been times where I maybe have thought, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I should move on. Even in the midst of all of those things, I have had a strong desire to farm, and I still today, 12 years in, have a very strong desire to farm. I think if I think about this as like, all right, we are bumping up a version. I am excited about making these changes. I am excited about all the things coming together. Maybe we need to have a grand reopening at some point. We can cut a ribbon with some big scissors or a huge knife. I don't know. Let's get on to the hard lesson learned. All right, well, I do have a hard lesson learned for you this weekend. I've been selling a lot of stuff on the farm. I've been throwing away stuff on the farm, and I've been gathering stuff up on the farm so it can be sorted and organized. But in the course of doing that, I've seen the effects of my poor management. I just didn't store it in a good place. I kind of just dumped it, dropped it on the ground behind the hoop house, and it started to rot it. And then I went to go pull it out to sell it, and I was like, it's rotten. It's got no floor in it anymore. I had a plywood floor in it, and the floor is just gone. All of that is my hard lesson learned. Hey, I do want to let you know this. You can always find me, The Beginning Farmer, of course, on YouTube, thebeginningfarmer.com, cookiegapfarm.com, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Stitcher, iTunes, all of those places. Just search The Beginning Farmer and you'll be able to find us. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. I hope you have a great day, whatever you are doing and wherever you are. That's it. That is a podcast episode. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much.